Hey guys, welcome back to Potter Thoughts, and this week we're going to be talking about The Cursed Child, which is the play written by Jack Thorne, John Tiffany, and based on the original story by J.K. Rowling. I don't really think she had much to do with it because, well, I'm going to say it right now, this play sucks. So, just so I don't have to hold it here, also so I can confer with my notes, I'm going to put it right here so you can still see it. So, first, the play is written in several parts, and it very much just covers Harry's kid, Albus Severus, and Draco's kid, Scorpius Malfoy. So, I like Scorpius. He's a good character, but Albus is just such a little shit. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a good idea not to really make Harry the main character, though he was in it a lot. Just the things that happened in it were so out of character for all these characters that we had built up throughout the Harry Potter series, that it reads like bad fanfiction, and I've read bad fanfiction, and this is the worst fanfiction I've ever written. I'm not necessarily going to be talking about things that were in the real play, like Hermione being played by a black actress. Things on stage played out differently than things on screen. If they do ever do a movie, I would hope that they would use Hermione Granger, like the original Hermione Granger, Emma Watson, but I don't think I'd even watch them. Well, I'd watch the movie, but I wouldn't like it, most likely, especially if it continued this story. So first, speaking of Hermione, she was the Minister for Magic in this book, and I don't think that she would ever really do that. That's too much of a bureaucracy thing for her. After being so used to breaking the rules with Harry and Ron, I don't think she'd be in charge of them. McGonagall also, she was headmistress of Hogwarts, which great choice. But the way that Harry talks to her in this, and just lets her walk all over her, but also he gives her the Marauder's map so that she can keep Albus and Scorpius away from each other at one point in the book, which is incredibly horrible because the Marauders would never like that. They would be rolling in their graves if they knew about it. And considering they're all dead, well, really depends on if you're going by the movies or the books, because Wormtail's still alive in the movies. But, moving on, one thing I'm just going to talk about that's not really related to Harry Potter lore is queerbaiting. It's where that you jump in and she's like, oh, they're gay, they're gay, they're gay, they're gay, they're gay. Oh, they're not gay. There's so much throughout the book that shows that Albus and Scorpius are gay. But then they're not, because Albus is very much into Delphi, which we'll get into later, and Scorpius is very much into Rose. Rose hates her, or him. Rose hates Scorpius because he's a Malfoy, but she was raised by Ron and Hermione, and they would not ever raise a kid like that. I'm sorry, but she's too horrible of a kid to be their child. Next, we had tons of missing characters like Luna, Neville, and Teddy Lupin. Considering he would have been at Hogwarts at that time. Victoire as well. Never heard from her, never heard from the Weasley, can't say Weasley twins, George. But there were just so many people that didn't show up that I thought would, because like the smallest thing would happen to the Weasleys in the movies or books, and everyone was out of Hogwarts, and they were doing anything that they could to help the rest. And considering Harry's kid is part of the Weasley family now, you'd think it would carry over to this. One thing that I wrote down that Harry said to Albus was, sometimes I wish you weren't my son. Harry would never say that, because Harry we know from the books and the movies would never say that, because he grew up losing father figures every time he got a new one, and finding out that his father figures weren't that great of father figures either, because he found out that Sirius and his father were actually kind of pieces of crap in school. He also found out that Dumbledore was pretty much leading him to slaughter like a pig. So everyone that he thought of as a father figure was horrible, so he would never do that to his kid. One thing that I would like to mention that I always thought is, these kids would never have gone through, Harry and the Golden Trio, would never have gone through all that stuff in their 7 years at Hogwarts and not come out with some sort of PTSD. not to come out without some sort of PTSD, I mean, because I would. If all of that had happened to me, me almost dying every year and my friends dying constantly and people betraying me all the time, I would probably have trust issues and PTSD. So I do think that some of what could have been caused by Harry in this book, or what Harry did in this book, was caused by something like that. And I wish more people would talk about stuff like that. But next, Delphi. We're going to be talking about Delphi. Her name is Delphine, and it's technically Riddle, spoilers, but it's actually, but she goes by Delphine Diggory. She says that she is Amos Diggory's niece, I think it is, and she actually turns out to be Voldemort's kid, which Voldemort didn't have a kid because it was actually, so it's Voldemort and Bellatrix Lestrange kid. First, I'd like to say that Rodolphus would probably have a problem with this. Also, it says that Bellatrix was pregnant with Delphi during the Battle of Hogwarts, so Bellatrix, or right before the Battle of Hogwarts, so when she had the kid right before Battle of Hogwarts, so she would have been pregnant when she was torturing Hermione. We never had any mention of that. We didn't see that in the movies, so I don't think that it could have happened. Voldemort also has no need for an heir because he thought he was going to live forever because of his Horcruxes. Just in that itself, the only way that this kid could exist as Voldemort's kid is Bellatrix doing an Accio for Voldemort's DNA or something. But I don't see her as his kid. And then Hermione is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher in one of the alternate timelines, because there are a lot of alternate timelines, because this story heavily focuses on a time turner that was created. Yeah, it's the last time turner, but it actually goes back a lot farther. You can go back years as opposed to like hours and days. So it centers around the two main characters, Albus and Scorpius, going back in time to save Cedric Diggory for Amos Diggory, because he wants Cedric to, he wants his son back before he dies, basically. So they go back the first time and they humiliate him in the first task of the Triwizard Tournament, so that he doesn't get to the end. He ends up doing really well in the second, and all that's changed in the future is a few things like, mainly, Albus is no longer a Slytherin, because Albus Severus was sorted into Slytherin. He is now a Gryffindor. And several other things, like, I'm pretty sure in that timeline Hermione never married Ron. But obviously, that is not a huge difference, but she is a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher in this alternate timeline, and she is really mean. She's, like, bitter to no end because she never married Ron and stuff like that. I don't think that stuff would ever really happen. And then the Golden Trio splits up after Hogwarts and they never really talked again. Which, again, I don't think would happen because, like, oh, we've spent 7 years together doing all these crazy adventures and we're just going to split up now. I don't think that would happen. When they go back the second time and they humiliate Cedric in the second task, he ends up becoming a Death Eater. Albus never exists because Cedric ends up killing, or no, Harry ends up getting killed by Voldemort, and Cedric ends up killing Neville. And so Scorpius has to go on his own to try to get back to the regular timeline and stop them from humiliating Cedric, which then causes all kinds of things. Voldemort's in charge. Snape is still alive. Snape and Hermione are together, like, not together, but friends, and they're helping each other defeat Voldemort, or they're trying to, and they call each other by their first names, which was really weird for me. But they also, it's just, Snape sacrifices himself again, which there's going to be a whole nother episode talking about Snape and Dumbledore and how much I don't like them, really, because of their abuse of Harry and everything like that. But that's a different topic, different day. And I'd like to just... They go back, everything's fine, except for Delphi somehow is comes out, takes the time turner, and goes back in time, and she's going to tell her father, Voldemort, not to attack Harry because it'll end up killing him. Then everyone has to go back in time. They all have to. There turns out to be a second time turner, and they have to go back in time to stop them. And Harry ends up defeating Delphini, and he watches as his parents die, which was really sad. I did like that part of it. And then they go to Cedric's grave and everything like that. But I did like the alternate timeline thing, though time travel can be iffy. I talked about nothing excuses abuse. The Trolley Witch. So the Trolley Witch is like an everlasting being, so to speak. She turns into a monster when people try to get off the train, and I'm pretty sure she said something about no one ever having made it off the train. Even Fred and George tried, though the Marauders may have accomplished it. I'm not sure, but it was so weird. She's throwing candy as like weapons. If they do make a new movie, I hope they leave that part out, because that was horrible. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is, before I give my overall on the book / play / script, Albus ends up taking Polyjuice Potion to break in and steal the time turner from Hermione's office. At one point, he has to go and distract her as Ron, because looks like Ron, and he kisses her multiple times, which is weird because she's his aunt. So I'm just going to leave that there, but overall, I did not like this. I really hope that a movie does not get made, and I do hope that they don't make a sequel to it, and if they ever do anything else with Harry Potter, that they just do, that J.K. Rowling writes it, and it's normal, and it's not weird like this. So, thank you for tuning in, guys. I'll see you guys next week.